back, everyone. We're going to be doing a different video again today. I know the Premier League is starting on the coming Friday. I think it's not sure if it's the 10th or the 9th. I think it's the 9th. 10th. I think it's Leicester versus Man United. But I just want to get a video out there before that kicks off, and I want to do my Premier League prediction. We're going to go through the relegation teams, 17th to 11th, 10th to 6th, and 5 and up then for the Europa League and Champions League spots. But we'll get through it. You can see here on the screen that it's going to be kind of a view of what my whole list will be. To go through the relegation teams, I think we're going to have Cardiff City. I don't think they're going to come up, and I think they're just going to go straight back down. Crystal Palace and Watford. Crystal Palace, you could probably see is the writings on the wall for them for the last while. They had a terrible start last season, and if Zaha isn't fit or isn't playing, they're almost guaranteed to lose. I don't think they have the players for them to stay up. They lost their loanee, what's his name? He was on loan from Chelsea. I forget. I'll probably put his name up. Who was kind of dominating their midfield from last season. He's gone back to Chelsea. I think he might be going out on loan again, but more than likely not to Crystal Palace, probably to a higher tier team, or possibly someone in the Championship, but more likely a Premier League team. And Watford, I think, will go down. They haven't really signed anyone, and they constantly do the chop and change manager routine, and I know it's worked for them so far, but comes to a point where you're going to burn yourself. And I have a feeling that they've burnt themselves so big with when they fired Marco Silva last year back in, was it October, November? You can't really blame him for that. He got sacked when the team wasn't performing well, and he had like half the team was injured. But yeah, so he's gone. He's gone to Everton now. But and they had another guy who was in there. Something Materazzi, something like that. He's a terrible manager. He hasn't done anything with the squad. They sold their best player to Everton, ironically. With Richarlison, I think he's going to be a dynamite player this season. But I think they've chopped and changed so often, and they're constantly revamping the squad and not kind of improving in key areas. They're just bringing in players to fix kind of gaping holes, and then a season or two they leave. I think that Andrea Pereira has gone back to Udinese or something now, or one of the Italian clubs, because the way their club runs, that they can get players in and they send them back and forth. I say that's something to do with financial fair play, but anyways. But yeah, I think they've just played too often with fire now, and they're going to get burned. So that'll be my three teams going down. For 17th to 11th, I think you could argue that these ones could probably be anywhere in between, but I think it's just going to be in this order that they might show up. In 17th, I have Huddersfield Town. I think they haven't really strengthened in any key areas, and last season they closed down their academy, so they're not going to have any young, fresh players coming through that could reinvigorate the squad, and they're just relying on purely on transfers. I know they bought some players, and David Wagner is a good manager, but towards the latter stage of the season, they started getting found out. So I think it could be a tough old run for them, but they'll probably pick up wins against the likes of teams around them. They have a good energy and dynamism about them, but I don't think they'll have enough to sustain that. But I think they might just beat the drop slightly. In front of them, I have Southampton. It's a similar situation with Huddersfield. I know Southampton have a great academy and everything, but they're playing with fire. They've been buying and selling players and not really improving the squad more so. And then they have what's his name? Not Pulis, the former Stoke manager, who, Jesus, he was just winning games by the skin of his teeth because of Tony Pulis with his foundations at Stoke, and once, I can't remember his name. The Welsh. I know he's Welsh. I know he played for Man United. I know he played for Barcelona. Oh, my name's. It's completely. But you know what I'm talking about. I don't know. He's a terrible manager. I don't think he's good at getting the best out of his players, and I don't think he has the right players for that squad. They need to be hard gritting, hard defenders, hard midfielders going to break up the ball, and a natural goal scorer. They only have Charlie Austin and Manolas Gaviadini. Charlie Austin he's a great striker and everything, but he's you might have him for 5 games a season if you're lucky. He's liable to be injury prone. He's basically Andy Carroll 2.0. Gabbiadini, he was great when he first joined, but I think he lost that flair to him. That once teams started to figure him out, he was a one trick pony kind of situation, and just gonna get past him. He possibly could be going back to Italy as well, so you never know. And I have in 15th, I have Brighton and Hove Albion. They'll probably finish higher than 15th, but I think that their squad overall, they haven't improved in key areas and of where they probably should be. But I think they'll probably finish higher than they are. I just think the other teams ahead of them are there on merit, just for reasons. But yeah, they could. I can imagine them seeing. I could easily see them finishing 10th, but just 15th at the moment. It's not too low. It's not too high. Ahead of them, I have Fulham. That one's a bit of a stretch. I know because they're coming straight up, but I think they have enough in their squad that's going to be. They signed Mitrovic from Newcastle. I highly rate him. I know some players, people think that he's basically Mario Balotelli 2.0, but when he joined, was it Newcastle originally, he was like 21, 22, and he was rash. And he's really honed his game. He's a complete target man. He knows how to involve players. He's a quite good finisher on the ball, and he's a very team player. And he completely changed the way Fulham played last season. I know he came into a squad that was bossing the league, and it'll be a test to see how he performs in the league, in the Premier League, because they're going to be a lesser tier team. I think, and they've made key signings the likes of Sherla, and they kept a hold of Sessegnon. I know he's a young player, and you can't be expecting the world of him, but I think he's got that flair and that edge that the other teams aren't going to really know how he plays. He's going to be quick, he's going to be nimble, he's defensive minded, and he can perform a bit of a job. So he'll do wonders for him, I think. And they also have Tom Kearney, and I rate him loads. And then above them, we have Leicester City. The reason I have Leicester here is that you have likes of Jamie Vardy. They sold a few of their previous strikers. Jamie Vardy's getting on a bit. He's going to be 32, 33 now. They sold Mars, who's arguably their best player in the team. The team's kind of almost cobbled together. I know they have Claude Puel as their manager, and he's an all right. He's all right. He's a decent enough manager. He did wonders with Southampton, considering when he was there, and he got them to the Carabao Cup semi-final or final. Sorry, was it last year or the year before? No, 2 years. 2 years ago. So he's a good manager. I just think that the squad is too old in key areas, and they're going to get exposed with pace and everything. They haven't really improved in certain areas. I know they have Demarai Gray, who's still there, and he can fill into the role that Mars left. But I think Mars was one of those kind of players that you're not going to get another one of him coming around shortly, especially for the money they bought him for. But I put Leicester there. I think they could easily fall lower than they actually are. I think they're going to have a hard time this season. They're going to be missing a lot of pace, a lot of goals that Mars would contribute to. It'd be interesting how they cope with it. But yeah, they're going to struggle for sure in that kind of mid-tier battle. They're probably hoping to stay in the top half of the table, but I'd say it's going to be a title one for them. And above Leicester, I have Bournemouth. Bournemouth, they're always a package that surprises you. They're another team that they haven't really signed anyone, and the players they do sign are sometimes good and sometimes they're bad. But they do tend to go on a bit of a run of forms. Like they'll play maybe 2 or 3 games and lose those 3, and then bounce back and win another 3. So they're kind of always in a cycle of winning a few games or getting draws and getting points here and there. Yeah, they're always doing a bit of business for themselves. They're a tricky side to beat, and their pitch is quite small. Their home pitch, I think it only holds 14,000 people. I don't know. I remember that's what the size of the stand was when they first joined. I don't know if they've improved that since. I assume they have. But it's still quite a small pitch. It's narrow. It's hard for teams that like to play expansive football to dominate on. So when you have a small team that's compact and knows how to play on that pitch efficiently, they do a bit of damage. But yeah, I think they'll finish 12th. They could finish higher, they could finish lower, but I think 12th is in a good position for them. 11th, I have Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think this one is kind of self-explanatory, although arguably I think they might be too high, but at the same time, the players they have to be finishing... Oh, excuse me. They have to be finishing in that kind of area. Like you have Ruben Neves, João Moutinho, Rui Patricio. I don't really rate Rui Patricio. He was a somewhat decent keeper in a somewhat decent league, and it made him seem like he was a great keeper. But he's an improvement on Rooney for sure. So he could be all right. He could be decent. You never know. They have a lot of good players. They have Jota, what's his name, Carvalho, and is it Rui Costa? No, not Rui Costa. Ricardo Costa. They're both the right inside wingers. They're quite tricky players. They have a nice core midfield to them with Ruben Neves. It'll be interesting with Ruben Neves and João Moutinho. Ruben Neves is a clear Champions League player, so he's probably going to drag him through a few games, but he's going to experience a rough time because they're going to be going up against teams. They're going to sit back, defend for their lives, not get broken down. But I think he was so dynamic last season in the, in Championship. I think he could actually have a better time of it because Wolves were one of those teams that were expected to go straight up or at least be up there to finish in the Championship. So teams would play against him would be very sit back, be compact, and not want to be broken down. While teams in the Premier League are going to want to go at them and rip them to shreds, which might be ideal for Neves. There'll be a lot of space for him to dominate the midfield, string passes together, get the wingers in, crossing the ball. Let's see how they do. They're supposed to be linked with the AC Milan striker. Can't remember his name. He's a Portuguese lad, of course, because that's all they ever seem to sign. I wouldn't be surprised if next season they sign Ronaldo at this stage. Silva. But yeah, if they sign him, he was a decent striker and he had a good conversion rate. Like, he didn't have a decent conversion rate. I think he only scored 2 goals in the league that weren't penalties. But his chances in the box were actually quite decent. And arguably, you need to have better chances in the Premier League. You need to finish 1-for-1 in the Prem because you're not going to get as many chances as you would in like the Serie A, Bundesliga, Championship, so on and so forth. So be interesting to see how they progress. I do think they'll probably finish around 11. They could finish lower because they might get smacked about the place and not be prepared for it. But I think the manager has enough about them to know they're gonna have a hard old time of it, and they have enough quality in their midfield and forward areas to compensate for those difficulties that they might face. 10th, I have Newcastle. I think they're just going to continue stabilizing. They're going to be supposed to be looking to bring in Rondon. I think he'd be perfect for him. He's quick, he's fast, he's quite athletic, a good eye for goal, and he'll be the perfect kind of player because when he was playing with West Brom, they were constantly just like long ball, see what you can do. Newcastle, it is slightly long ball, but it's a little more technical, and that's exactly the kind of game that he wants to play. Hopefully he moves. I think the talk is around 18 or so million. They sold Mitrovic to Fulham for about 22. Personally, I don't know why they sold him. Personally, he was one of my favorites. They got back I forget his name, the Brazilian lad from Chelsea. Oh God, I'm terrible with names today. It might come back to me, but he joined in January of last season, and he completely changed the game and brought them that kind of that killer ball that could rip teams to shreds and get them that vital goal. Because they were missing goals from the likes of Gale. Gale is good. He's quick. He's fast. He's quite athletic, but he doesn't have that killer eye for goal. Same with the right winger. I can't remember his name either at the moment. He is Ghanaian, I believe. Might be wrong. Terrible with bloody names at the moment. I'm usually quite good. It might just be because it's late at night and I can't remember. But yeah, I think 10th they're going to continue to stabilize Rafa Benitez. Hopefully he stays because I really actually like the progress Newcastle are making. Yeah, they're making quite a good progress. I think they'll capitalize on everything. Hopefully they bring in 1 or 2 more players just to kind of stabilize the midfield. They signed a few decent players. They just need to just make sure everything is how they want it to come the end of the transfer window, have everything they need. Hopefully it comes to fruition for them. I really want them to stay where they are because I'm a big fan of True Geordie, and I know he doesn't like it when Newcastle don't play well, although arguably he does make good content when they don't play well, so I don't know. Take it as you wish. In 9th I have West Ham United. They performed terribly last season, but arguably once the defence came around because of the job that Slaven Bilic did, terrible manager. He reminds me a lot of Roberto Martinez, that he cannot set up a defense to save his life. He's very attacking minded, and defense is like, yeah, sure, you just do your job, lay it out there. But defenders need that routine, knowing how the team's going to be shaped, and everything's just gun ho. David Moyes gave them a bit of stability, set up the defense, brought in new players because their back line, I think the average age was like 32 or something 32, 33. They signed a decent, I believe they signed a decent goalkeeper. They didn't get Hart back, thank God, because he can't save. He can only save on one side of the goal. I believe it's right hand side he can save. Left he can't. I don't know if it's like he has a smaller arm or shorter frame on his left hand side, which can occur. But like he can't actually physically get down low enough to save with his left hand. So he's good. He's gone. They made some key signings, the likes of Yuri Yarmolenko, I believe that's how you say it. They signed him from Dortmund for like 15, 17 million, which was a bargain and a half considering they bought him for about 20 something last year. And his numbers are ridiculous. He was playing with Dynamo, who are a similar kind of ilk of team. Physical, has to get the ball about. And they signed a great manager in Manuel Pellegrini. Arguably, he didn't have the best time at City, but the writing was on the wall for him the whole time. He was the kind of intermediary manager. I don't know if that's even the right word. And he was just kind of the manager to take it from Mancini to Guardiola to kind of build upon it and improve in the key areas. He wasn't the best at setting up the defense, but he knows how to. Well, not that he didn't know how to set up the best defense. He just didn't have the right players for his overall team. Because if you look back at the team he had in Malaga, they were quite efficient, great on the ball, good at set pieces and everything. And West Ham have a big. Everything seems to be going well for them. They're playing great. All their preseason games have been going excellent for them so far. I think they're going to finish in that ninth position, although they easily could finish up and set up as far as maybe 6th or 7th if they have a good run of form. And especially now they have Arnautovic playing the way you want to, because I know at the start of last season he was playing more of as a left winger, and he just wasn't performing. As soon as they brought him as a striker, everything just clicked. And hopefully they start him again like that, and the team just revolves around him, and he becomes their main man. I'd like him to, because I used to love him when he used to play at Werder Bremen. He was a cut above most teams around that level. Now we're on to Burnley in 8th. I think Burnley are going to finish slightly lower than they did last season. They could finish lower because the biggest problem with Burnley was that they were quite defensively stable last season. But if they had a very low goal difference. Like they were only maybe winning games 1 or 2-0. And by the end of it, and they were conceding goals every now and again. But by the time the end of the season, they were single digits. They weren't in like 20 or 20 plus, like most teams around 7 and up. They were quite low and winning games 1-0, 2-0. But like if you change a couple of those results into draws, they're going to drop way down. And arguably teams could be expecting that kind of level of defensive capability. They have improved, or they are looking to improve in signing Ben Gibson from Middlesbrough. He could be a decent signing. I don't really rate him, but what's his name? Forget the Burnley manager's name. God damn it. It's on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of it. But you guys know who I'm talking about if you watch Premier League football. He's a kind of manager who watches all the players. So he looks at signing in, bringing in. They have to be team players, hard workers, and Sean Dyche. That's what his name is. But yeah, I think they could possibly struggle because if they concede a few more goals. And also another thing to know is that Tom Heaton and what's his name? Tom Heaton and Nick Pope are both injured, and they're possibly bringing in Joe Hart on loan. It could be a permanent signing, but I assume it's a loan, which could be problematic for him. Possibly they could go lower down, but they actually have a somewhat decent defense in front of them. While last year, West Ham didn't, until David Moyes kind of rejigged it and made improvements upon it. Jesus, tired. But I'd say, of course, Hart's going to let in a few mares, but overall, he probably will perform to a certain degree. Um, they're probably going to concede a few more goals, so they're probably going to look to bring in maybe another striker or another kind of forward to spice it up for them up top to provide a bit more width and dynamism to their team. I think they can finish eighth. It's just all about if Hart can be good for them, I guess. And now to seventh, we have Everton. I think these guys are going to be electric next season. They got rid of Rooney, who's on a crap load of money. They got rid of Big Sam. I do rate him at times, but he wasn't the right manager for him. And they brought in Richarlison, I don't know how you say his name, the Belgian, Brazilian lad from Watford for about £40 million. I think it was 40 million, it might have been 50 million. I think he's going to be something else. I know last season he didn't have the best numbers, but if you actually look back at how many games he played between before he joined Watford and while he was at Watford, he played pretty much every single game for Watford. Throughout 2017 at Watford, he scored like 9 goals or something, 9 goals, 9 assists, something around there, which is really good numbers. But before that, and throughout all of 2017, I believe he played something like 60 something games, which is crazy. Like that's just one calendar year. Like I know in between and usually you have like a month or two off, which he didn't. And he just constantly played through, and eventually once you get to the Premier League and you start playing through December and they start piling on, you don't really get a break in between. The throat's a bit dry there. But yeah, I think he's going to be electric for him. Everton have just been missing that kind of player with pace to kind of cut through teams and be ruthless on the ball. They have Walcott, who's quite good. He has pace. He'll get through teams. He'll get into the final third, but he'll just scuff his lines. He's very inconsistent and terrible one-on-one. They have... I actually don't remember who... Oh, Tossin. Everton have Tossin up front. I think he's going to be decent for him. He's a target man, big guy, quite quick, good at finishing, but I think he needs that kind of player to send him balls or send crosses into the box so he can header him home. Possibly being a bit Lukaku-esque, possibly a little more Giroud-like, but I think he could actually do a job for him. I think this season, and they have Marco Silva, and every player that you see interviews of talking about Marco Silva, he's just a cut above. He was let go by Watford way too soon. If you look back and when he got fired, it didn't make sense. Obviously, he might have left. The reason he was left was probably because he got a little bit tapped up by Everton, but he got fired because the team wasn't performing well. But if you look back around that time frame, they lost, I think it was like between 6 or 7 games in a row, but they were missing 15 players in between injuries and suspensions and international duties, and it came down to about like half of that was first team starters. So of course you're going to not play your best and against like majority of the top half of the table, like so your Man Cities, Man Uniteds and stuff. But yeah, so it was crazy for him to get fired, and every player you see that talk about him is like, oh, he's a genius. Like, even look at Hull City when he got relegated with them, but he almost saved them, and before he joined, they were guaranteed relegators. Guaranteed on, but come the last day of this season, they only had to win the game, or I think a couple of the results had to go their way. It didn't end up going, but they fought through it. They played great. They won some games when before he joined they rarely won, and he did well for him. I thought. Okay, so we'll go from Everton now to Arsenal. I think Arsenal are going to finish outside the top 4 again. Emery's going to have his work cut out for him. He's a very you kind of remind me of Klopp a bit in terms of how he wants his team to be physically fit, and there's going to be a lot of injuries. I think it's not going to be until maybe next season or season after that Arsenal are going to start going for the top 4 and up. The squad have to adjust to his playstyle. I know he's had the season to work on it, but I don't think that's enough time, especially since he's still making signings, and some of them are decent, some of them are a bit I don't know. He's very good defensively, so that's going to be great for Arsenal because they've had a leakiest defense for years. And Leno is going to be a great signing for him. Socrates is a great signing, although he's a bit of a loose cannon alongside Xhaka. He's about the same rate of yellow cards and red cards as Xhaka does, so could be a bit error prone in that sense. The right back of acquisition of Lichtsteiner is good. I don't think it's the player they need. It might just be kind of that player in the background. He's done it all. He knows what he's doing. Blah blah blah. Improve upon what Emery wants to do. It looks like he still wants to sign maybe one or two more players. Looking like they have what's his name, Inzonzi from Sevilla. Although he looks like he's going to, I think it's Inter. Inter, one of the other big boys in Italy. But I'd like to see him go back to, because like you do have to kind of remember, he turned a player that was at Stoke City who was kind of, he was all right, to 3 times champ or Europa League winner and winner of the World Cup. I know the World Cup wasn't exclusively Emery, but he actually was quite. He turned a kind of mediocre player into an almost world class-esque player. So looking at what he can do, I think he's going to do wonders with Xhaka because I actually rate him a lot. He's got a bit of a wonder strike on him. He was great when he was at what do you call it, Borussia Mönchengladbach, but he was never played as a defensive midfielder. He played as I think usually in a 2 or a 3, just in front of a defensive midfielder. So he wouldn't have to provide all that defensive coverage. He would defend at times, but he'd be more so for releasing those crazy strikes and recycling the ball and getting it back out to the more attacking minded players. So hopefully he can really kind of train him in that mold. Because I think if you get Xhaka playing the way he should be playing, you're going to have a hell of a player on your hands. And then for the 5th place, for qualifying into Europa League, we have Tottenham. I don't think they're going to finish into the top 4. They haven't made enough signings for me personally. Actually, they haven't made any signings. They have Lucas Moura from last season, who didn't really play that much. He could be decent. I don't know. I personally didn't really rate him that much at PSG. He was quick, he's tricky, but that's about it. He has no real end product. He could do like a Pochettino, and like when he signed Son, be there for 2 years, and all of a sudden after 3 years, bang, world class player. Oh, excuse me. I just don't see it at the moment. Harry Kane's too injury prone. Dele Alli's being found out a bit, I think. And once he starts getting found out, he gets aggressive and he's liable to get himself sent off. Eriksen is Eriksen. He's world class, but he can't do everything himself. He has to be the player who's kind of creative, flows through the team, allow the passes to come through. It looks like they're getting rid of Dembele. He looks like he's been out of sorts for a while. One thing I'm surprised about is that they didn't go for Vidal from Bayern Munich. I know Vidal's a bit of not the same ilk of player as Dembele, but he's a grand job for like a season or two just to fill in the gaps. I know he's a bit of a loose cannon as well at times with his recent kind of drinking and stuff and drunk driving, but he's a world class player on his day, and especially since Barcelona are getting him for like 20 million, why would you take a punt on him? Considering, although I think they're at their English player quota or something, which doesn't make sense because the majority of the Spurs team is English. So it's kind of weird. Their entire backbone is predominantly English or players who've been trained in England. That's besides the point anyways. So they haven't really signed anyone. The players can't be found out. Alderweireld looks like he's gone. Rose is injury prone as all hell. They have Aurier, Trippier. They're both decent enough fullbacks, but I don't think they're rapid enough. They don't have that kind of dynamism. Because the one thing that I found that Spurs were always missing is that right midfielder. They have Lamela, but he's injury prone, and he's probably gone now. He probably should be looking to maybe restructure himself into a striker or just being behind, because I don't think he has the pace or the physicality to be on the right wing anymore or cut inside. He'll probably look to be offloaded, possibly go back to Argentina or maybe China, somewhere like that, so he can kind of recoup and rebuild himself. I don't know. It's going to be. I always rated him, but I think he's just had a hard time with injuries and stuff. But yeah, they're going to. I think Tottenham will finish outside the top 4. They could finish in it, but I think it's unlikely. In 4th position, I have Chelsea. And also for the top four, yeah, top four, I suppose. These could all chop and change, but I just have them for how I think the league could go. Chelsea, they have Sarri in, and he actually plays quite attacking and flowing football, which would actually be quite good for the players he has there at his disposal with the likes of Morata. Morata on his day is world beater. I remember him against Real Madrid, was it 2 seasons ago, and he was just up and down, up and down, up and down, creating, had just energy for days. I think Conte just kind of just killed any desire he had, and Sarri's just that hype man he's gonna be like a Mourinho, as Zlatan always talked about him, be that kind of guy that you fight for, or you kill for, all that kind of stuff, and he's going to just give him that kind of desire to pull on a Chelsea shirt. Even though I hate Chelsea personally, I not to say they're a bad club, but I just don't like their philosophical and how they've signed their players. Personal reasons, just well, not I suppose. Anyways, but yeah, I think Chelsea will finish top four. They could finish higher, but I think just the way they are and the teams above them are, in my prediction, it's just a viable shout. I have Liverpool for third. I have Liverpool in third just because it's Liverpool, because Liverpool could pull a Liverpool, but at the same time, I'd put a sneaky bet on Liverpool winning the league. I think if the goalkeeper just clicks, they're going to win it, personally. And if Salah can hit form, the only thing with Salah is that he's going to be slightly injury prone, and if any defender is looking at that, like, Ramos took you up by kind of side barging you, and if I can just take you out of the game, we could probably win this, because Sadio Mane is good, but he is just not as efficient as Salah is. But thankfully, they've actually strengthened in those areas that they've been light in. They've I don't know if they've actually signed a striker yet, but to go alongside Firmino or going as a second choice. Sturridge is back, but Sturridge liable to break his leg at any point. They have Shaqiri, I highly rate him. He's a great player. I think the problem with him was that he just wasn't getting enough service, and he's the kind of player who will do the jobs for you. He'll run up and down the pitch, but just don't expect him to win you every single game. He'll win you a game, maybe one in every three, but he's not going to win you every single game. He's not going to grab the entire team and pull them along. It's not a fair thing to do. I know Salah did it last season for Liverpool, but hopefully he can recreate that. I think the injury is going to hamper him a little bit. Hopefully Oxlade-Chamberlain can come back, because that would actually reinvigorate them completely. And Fabinho, who else have we signed? Fabinho, Keita, yeah, that midfield is going to be stacked. Even if they don't have the goals from the forwards, they're going to have the goals from the midfield. The midfield is just going to overrun teams, and the amount of shots they had last season, if they can improve, I think maybe like 10% more on target, like, they're going to be ridiculous. Personally, I'm a Man United fan for the Premier League, but I'd like to see Liverpool win it. I know every time I say that, all Man United fans are like, what the hell are you on about, blah, 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 blah. Liverpool, arch rivals, blah, blah, blah. But I'd rather much see a Liverpool win the league than a Chelsea or a Man City, because it's more earned that way, I think. It's more about the fans and blah, blah, blah. But I don't probably want to get a lot of hate for that. I have Man United in second, just because it's Mourinho. You think he's probably going to win out games for you. At the same time, looking at Mourinho now, I think he's just days from getting sacked. Personally, he probably won't, but he's doing his Mourinho thing, where it's like the third season he just loses the run of himself completely, and he's just going to make all players hate him. You can see, I don't know what the hell he's doing. Like, he signed Sanchez last season. I know Sanchez specifically signed just so Man City were weakened, so that they want to improve on key areas. But they signed a player for a position there to have like 3 or 4 players in, who doesn't really improve in that area. Like, arguably, Martial, I think, or Rashford is as good as Sanchez is. Sanchez might have that killer ball, like, comparably, not like for like. Like, Sanchez, probably when you put him in the box, he's probably going to score you a goal. Or if you put him outside the box to curl on a free kick, it'll probably go in. With Martial, I think he's the most clinical goal scorer out of the 3 of them. I know some people might say, "Oh, you're crazy," whatever, but the amount of goals Martial scores from the amount of game time he has is ridiculous. And then you have Rashford, who will just give you boundless energy up and down the pitch, up and down. Will just try things that other players won't. He won't want to give away possession. And I think a big thing for them for this season for Man United is to give the young players a chance. I know they want to sign Alderweireld or Bonucci or someone for to kind of stabilize the midfield, but I think you got the players there. Like you want to improve upon them. Like you have like Sitwan Zabi, Roshan Williams, I think it is Roshan William Phillips. I don't know. I think it's Williams. Um, Obviously he's a little bit too young, but still you want to be given maybe like FA Cup, Carabao Cup, play it right back every now and again. Just give him a run the team and to kind of give him some game time. Uh, but yeah, I'd look to offload maybe Rojo and Jones. I love Rojo, but if he is fit, he's decent. But he's just as like actually I'd say in every single game you're as liable to get Rojo injured or suspended because he'll either go in for a double foot challenge, break his ankle, or break the other player's ankle, get himself sent off. um, Although he looks like he's going to possibly Everton, he's a good player on his day, but I just don't think he's composed enough to play for Man United. Like you need him to be that stalwart defender that's going to stay alongside his defense partner, who would probably be Bailly, and just break up play, get the ball, send it long. But yeah, I think you want to rely on Bailly and what's his name, Lindelof from Sweden. I think Lindelof is a decent player. He might be slightly might need a bit of game time just to come good in the squad. But like him and Bailly, have, like I don't know if it's like they barely played with each other or they haven't played with each other yet. But I think it's a partnership made in heaven. Like Bailly is the equivalent of the Vidic, and Lindelof is the Ferdinand, the ball carrier, distributing the ball. Obviously not as good as defensively as Ferdinand as he is now. I think he's only like 22, 23. So like he has, and the same with Bailly. So they have like their ceilings for improvement is ridiculous. I think like all they need to do is just trust the players, not start Fellaini because if you throw on Fellaini, he's just going to do his own thing, not follow directions and just cause problems all over the pitch. Like he plays a defensive midfielder and goes alongside the striker, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Personally, I don't know why he was signed back. He should have just been let go. I know it was probably like, oh, his resale value, we'll sign him back and we can sell him on again. But like, who's going to want to buy 30, I think he's 31, 32-year-old tree? Unless if you're an is it herbalist? I don't know. But that's the only people I can see who want to buy Fellaini. Maybe someone, some crazy bastard in the Russian league or Chinese league that just want that kind of that cutting edge who's going to elbow a player in the face and get himself sent off and probably cause you to conceding goals. That player who's going to just be a cut above. But yeah, I'd also love to see Luke Shaw get a shout this season. I know players looking at him, or there's the media pointing at him saying like he looks unfit. Your man looks fucking built. Like he doesn't have the build of a footballer who's narrow and nimble. Like he's a big blocky lad who strong on the ball. And I think the biggest problem for Shaw is that he doesn't actually have a left winger or left midfielder playing on the left hand side. He has a striker, and sure, he's basically playing as a winger, as the left back. Like technically, he's not really used to it. I'd be maybe pushing Young on as a left midfielder. I don't rate Young at all, but just to give the Shaw a bit of encouragement that Young's just going to be there. If you need him to double back, he'll double back. Like when it was Memphis and Luke Shaw. Memphis was a left winger. Like I know some people thought, oh, he's a striker. He'll cut in on his favorite right foot, but that's just to get a goal off. Majority of the time, Memphis played on the left wing, allowed overlap between him and Shaw, and it was great to watch. Great gameplay, match tactics, getting everything right. I think that's what Shaw just needs. He just needs to make sure that his midfield partner knows what they're going to be doing. If Shaw goes for an overlap, that the striker doesn't go alongside him, and when they lose possession, that they're both out of position. But then Shaw will get blamed for it because he's too far forward, and he's sensible with the ball. He won't look for getting the team on the counter attack. I think it was last season that he was by the box, and it was him. He wasn't the furthest forward, but he was slightly forward, and there were only two players back. So if he lost possession and the other team countered, it was very possible for them to concede. And so he decided, you know what, I'm going to pass the ball back to Matic. He can distribute it. I'll get back into position and form a little more defensive stability. Jose Mourinho loses his shit, takes him off, throws on Young. How else is a player supposed to improve? And he's doing his job. So I don't know. It pisses me off. I think I rate him. Personally, I think I know people are saying that if Martial goes, he'll come back to haunt United. I think it's the exact same thing with Luke Shaw. Personally, I think Luke Shaw is a cut up of most defenders. When you're looking at left backs in the current kind of footballing world, we're thinking, oh, who's going to be a cut above? You have Alexis Sandro. I don't rate him. He's just basically a winger who plays the fullback. Alaba, he's good. He's not defensive minded. I think that was a problem with Guardiola. He's wrecked him. Like, he used to play as a left back. He was trained as a left back. Played as left back, defensive minded. Go forward when you can, but always come back to position. But Guardiola's like, just run, do your thing, blah 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 blah. That's one thing I don't like about Guardiola. He comes in, he kind of reminds me of Mourinho, but he kind of destroys all that defensive nurturing a players had, and it's like just free flow attack, do what you want, and it causes problems because that's why I think Boateng and Hummels have been exposed. Hummels and Boateng have always been, I thought, were a little bit overrated. I don't know where I'm going with this conversation now, but personally, I think Luke Shaw is better than the likes of Sandro or Alaba at this moment in time. As a left back, not as an overall footballer, because they have a little more edge to them as a player overall. If you're to give like a FIFA rating as a left back, I'd say Shaw is probably like an 8. Well, if you're going to go out of 100 as a FIFA rating, probably like an 80. 84 as left back, as a footballer, 80. When you have Alaba as a left back, I'd give him an 80, and as an overall footballer, probably like 85, something like that. I know we're going a bit off topic, but I think personally that he needs to start left back all season and bring Young in just for that bit of cover, or to play a little bit further forward if they need to be a little more defensive structurally. And then we have Man City up top. I think Man City are going to get exposed next season. They probably won't finish first, but I think the other teams around them, as the way things stand, they look favourites. I think come 6 months' time, it's going to be very different. Man City could be in fourth. Like, they play free-flowing football, but they have improved upon defenders, and Otamendi is, although they could bring back in Stones, because he had a stellar World Cup, because Otamendi, he's basically just a guy who punts the ball long, or gets headers in the box. That's about it. He can't defend to save his life. Fullbacks be good. Good to see Mendy back in the squad. Although Fabian Delph has deserved his position, he's been quite decent for playing a left back, even though he's a centre midfielder. Too much of Aston Villa fans despisement, demise. I don't know. But yeah, I think Man City will probably finish first. They just have that core of players that will win you the league. But at the same time, that defensive stability. Ederson has come good, so that's going to be one improvement for him. And if you have, if you give players that are ideal for those roles, although if they do get Fernandinho injured, they're going to be screwed because they really only have one defensive midfielder out and out. You do have your I can't really think of any others. Like, they have Fernando, who they sold to Galatasaray, who's gone. They were going for Jorginho, and he's gone. Unless they sign someone in between now and the start of the season, I don't really see them. Like, one injury, they could be screwed just for that one kind of pivotal position, because Guardiola doesn't tend to have a plan B. Be interesting to see what happens with that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is my Premier League prediction. Leave comments below. See what would you guys change? Leave your Premier League prediction below. Tell me how you would change it, how you improve it, how you disagree, agree, whatever. But I really enjoyed doing this. But thanks again. Hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. See you guys next time.